Welcome to Hoovie's Garage, the dumbest automotive channel in all of YouTube. This really is the dumbest channel ever because I have bought back a project car that I sold years ago. This was the car that started my entire YouTube channel and what started me down the road of automotive masochism. It was the biggest pain in the butt ever. It's exploded on me multiple times and I sold it out of disgust. And for some reason, I was feeling nostalgic. The person that I sold it to never did anything with it when I sold it to him, so I've bought it back. You probably could guess by now what it is. It's Apollo 911. That's a 1999 Porsche 911 that I bought with 243,000 miles. I named it Apollo 911 because that was the equivalent distance from the Earth to the moon, the distance traveled. And it still had its original engine and transmission at the time. It was about 6 flawless months, including a trip to Florida and back to the Amelia Island Concours, before I decided to take it out on the track, and I completely blew the motor.
Good night! Miata is not always the answer. Woohoo! Okay, bad noise.
Just completely annihilated it out of complete stupidity. The engine may have lasted quite a while longer, but it was tired. And then I had the bright idea to LS swap it. And that's how I introduced the Car Wizard really to the YouTube channel.
You're standing here staring at me. Look there. But before my Porsche motor is yanked and shipped off, I wanted to do a little automotive CSI to figure out what happened. A lot of people think the symptoms are classic of an IMS bearing failure, which if that's the case, there would be a lot of metal shavings running all over the filter. If there's a bunch of plastic pieces stuck in there, then it might be time to change the sharing by shape is scraping away the plastic diaphragm. So I got David here and we're going to take a look inside the filter.
We'll take the oil filter off.
He gave you that death stare then to infinity that never stopped, but obviously he's much better on camera. Now, he LS swapped the car and I took it out on the track again. And we've lost oil pressure. Does not sound good. Really? Again? Are you serious? You garbage. And the engine blew up. This is after I invested, well, probably something like $40,000 into the car, from purchase price to repairs to blowing up the first engine to LS swapping to blowing up the second engine, and it was just a mess. It was nonstop negativity with this car, and so rather than fixing it again, I sold it out of disgust, and that seemed maybe premature. I'm being really negative here. Actually, I'm super excited to have this car back because in the years of hindsight, the Wizard and I have talked about it, and we've talked about this car and how we could have, well, built it better, to borrow somebody's phrase. There was a pretty obvious reason why the original LS swapped engine in this car failed, and it's something that we can easily prevent. And now that the Wizard has been in this car once, he's pretty confident he can do it again. At the time, it didn't seem like a too attractive prospect to go through and LS swap a car again. And at the time, I really didn't have the money for a collection. When I needed to buy another car for new content on the YouTube channel, I needed to sell something else. I need to sell a few cars now because I'm in trouble because of the Lambos. But back then, I had to sell this to buy something else. But now it's back, and I paid $20,000 for the privilege of owning a non-running 911 that's been hacked to bits with a Chevy engine in the back in 1,000 pieces. But I'm really excited, and actually, the Wizard is too. So let me give you a tour of this 911. The Wizard and I are going to talk about, well, what's here, what's not, and the plan for this build. There's also a hoopty that's finished, another big project the Wizard's had for a while that we are going to take on a shakedown cruise. It's back. Do your impression of early YouTube, Wizard. Yes. Early YouTube. Stone face. Okay, you can stop. Okay. I'm a little scared.
All right.
But You know, Apollo 911 is sort of how I introduced you to the world.
It is.
After I blew up the original engine with 248,000 miles, I believe, and we set upon this journey to LS swap it, and it definitely wasn't the easiest thing in the world. It's still probably one of the hardest things you've ever done, right?
Yeah, it's one of the harder engine swaps I've ever done. Any kind of a project like that, it was tough.
And actually, one of the main reasons why it was so hard is because of the kit that we bought. At the time, they were the only name in the game that was doing LS swaps on Porsches. And it seems like either they didn't want people doing it themselves, they wanted to send it to their shop to do it, or they just weren't very helpful, because you would call and ask for help on how to do this and that, and you would get no answer back.
They would say, well, it's just kind of like however you want to do it. And I was like, no, you've developed this kit. You need to tell me how you did it.
Right.
Not how I want to do it.
So like routing the cooling system, they were like, well, you just route it up. There's more than one way to do it, which, I mean, come on. Seriously? Fuel system, another big issue. So it took way longer than it should have, just because you were figuring out how to put together this kit with virtually no instructions.
Right.
And that was crazy. As opposed to this Beck, which is nearing completion, they have been very helpful.
Yes.
They have, every single phone call they've answered and taken for you, got you the answer almost immediately, to where every step of the way you've had support. This car, well, not so much. So the person I bought it from, he started the project, typical guy with multiple projects, you know, people in Florida, actually. He lives in Florida.
Seems to be a Florida.
Yeah, all he did was take it apart, which a lot of people do in their projects. They take the car apart and then they never put it back together. But thankfully, he preserved it to where basically it was as I gave it to him, except the engine was out of it. Now, he had sourced a new LS engine. I guess we can open it up here. He sourced a new LS engine, but had never bolted it in. And I asked him to put it in. I paid $20,000 to buy this heat back, which...
You paid what?
Great. Yeah, I know. But anyway, I really wanted it back. So he bolted the engine in just enough to where I could transport it. Otherwise, you're transporting an engine separately, and it was just going to be a pain. So everything has to all come back out and make sure it's bolted in. I think this intake wasn't even really bolted on. You see all the wiring.
Looks like everything's all just kind of... I'll have to go through. And really, I'm excited to do this because last time that I did this swap, we were kind of rushed. You were trying to make it to the... Where was you making it to?
I don't even remember at the time. Was it Amelia Island or something?
Yeah, I think it was Amelia Island.
Yeah.
You were excited to get this to Amelia Island, so we kind of rushed to get it done. But this time around, I can make things a little better.
It was Monterey Car Week.
Monterey Car
And
Week.
I never made it. Yeah.
You never made
No, I bought the C36 AMG.
Yeah.
That's right. And then met Matt Farah, did the smoking, because I was going to do the smoking tire drive with this car at the time. But it didn't make it, and it was done shortly after that. But the main issue where this car blew up was on the track, and it had to do with the oil pan and starving the main bearings of the engine for oil. So we have a solution for that, I guess one of two ways, like a baffled oil pan.
There's two reasons why it did that. Number one is because the pan didn't have baffles. It wasn't made for racing. Number two, the engine's sitting backwards even compared to where it used to be in a Corvette. So now when you hit the brakes, the oil flies forward, and that would never happen in a Corvette.
Yeah.
So
a different oil pan would solve it, and also they make dry sump systems now for these LS hinges, which would solve that issue as well. So we'll explore that, the one of two ways to go. But let's look around this thing just to see what we have to work with. Where are the parts? Looks like, well, obviously the intake's on, but there's a lot of accessories missing around here.
Yeah, accessories are missing. The insulation's all kind of torn up.
Nothing's plugged in.
None of the connectors are plugged in. They're just sitting there. There's the coolant reservoir.
Yes, you used a Volkswagen.
Yeah, that's out of a Beetle.
Yeah, and I see the fuel pressure.
Fuel pressure regulator, yeah.
Yep. All your fuel lines.
Mm-hmm.
And then this ducktail was originally on the car before the engine blew out. You cut it all open. Actually made it quite nice for the intake.
Yeah, it would suck fresh air in right through the...
And you still have the old one above your toolbox.
Yes, it's been there ever since.
Decoration. Well, I think I'll still keep the ducktail on there.
Yeah.
I had those cool wheels that were the vintage Fuchs-looking wheels. You used them for a car that you'd since sold, but I think I'll leave these turbo twist spokes on there. This was such a cool spec of 911. It's a very, very early car, a 98 build, and it has the sport interior that is a faded lobster. Very weathered,
yes.
Which is what kind of drew me to it. It was only $9,500 at the time, running and driving 911. The cheapest one in the USA. The first time I ever said cheapest in the USA, Got a box of stuff here. Check it out. Let's see.
Yeah, let's see what's in here. Looks like exhaust headers.
Oh, these.
Yeah, you had to cut them to make them fit so it looked the part.
Right, these are fuel rail covers, so it would have said Corvette all the way across, but it wouldn't fit in there, but still it covered up the ugliness of...
There's a clutch disc.
Okay.
So
well,
obviously that's not in the car.
That needs to be in the car, yes.
And there's a water pump, some hoses.
And headers.
Yes. And some bagged bolts.
Interesting. Yeah, well, he's kind enough to label everything. Header bolts.
Yep.
Muffler. So he's pretty methodical in taking it apart, which is nice.
He just didn't get very far.
He never even bothered registering it, so the car's still titled, tagged in my name. Expired June 2018. I bought this thing 5 years ago, Wizard.
Yeah?
Lots changed since then.
I wonder why you gave up.
Like the size of your shop. That was the other issue, was space.
Yeah. It's
Back then, a multi-month-long project tied up, well, basically had room for about 5 cars back then.
Yeah, max 5.
And now, slightly larger.
It's 20 or 30.
Yeah, I made some questionable styling decisions. The Apollo 911 script, that's got to stay on there. That was cool. You put that on.
Yeah, I put it on, yeah.
Yes. And then I covered up the runny egg headlights, which maybe I'll undo, because now I've just sort of wanted to embrace the ugliness of the runny egg headlights. But I'll have to think about that, because the color match on the silver isn't very good either. Of course,
It's all still in the same shape it was before.
Exactly the same. It was so hoopty. Oh man! But in here is
more parts.
well, more stuff.
That's the custom exhaust you had made.
Yeah.
It's like Flowmaster or something.
That's the battery cover. No battery.
No battery, no. Here's a brace that goes on the bottom. That's pretty much all that's in here.
Okay. Well, it's back. The most masochistic automotive project I ever had, but I'm wanting to give it another chance. I'm glad that it's back. It's one of those cars that, you know, it started my YouTube channel. I was really kicking myself for letting it go, so the opportunity to buy it back was pretty huge. So I'm happy about that, but we need to finish a few other projects in the garage first. Right. Actually, the Beck Spider is nearing completion. Just a few odds and ends to tie up on that, right?
Just inside the tank there's a fuel pump that needs to be wired in. And we're just getting so swamped, but we're actually very, very close on that.
But there is one car that's finished, right?
Yes.
The Woody.
The Woody.
My Woody finally is alive.
You could go get your Woody.
Okay. Actually, before we hop on the real Woody, I want to talk about progress on some other cars. The Diablo steering rack and the sticky buttons are almost on their way back to us. So maybe in the next week or two, that car will be back together. And my fake Woody is getting, well, getting a little treatment.
Getting an augmentation procedure.
I see. Well, he's using a heat gun, Mr. Junior meant to bend this part of the wood that wants to be stiff.
Yes.
Back into form. It's working. Be gentle. Very gentle.
Be gentle with the wood.
Yes. That's the one that's done.
Yes.
Look at that. Yes, this is my 1951 Ford Country Squire. I bought it almost a year ago. I feel like I got a really good deal, especially with everything going up in value now, but it was a very stock, restored in the 80s.
Yeah.
But a very stock looking flathead powered wood paneled vehicle that had been sitting for a very long time. So in addition to new tires and going through all the things you would do on a car that's been sitting for a long time, we did some period correct hot rod modifications, which is what really makes this engine look cool. Not much faster, but look really cool. Edelbrock heads, Offenhauser dual carb setup, electrically all redone to 12 volt now. That was an accident waiting to happen, especially with all this wood, this kindling. And now you're saying it's done.
And it has Bluetooth.
Oh yes, and I have stereo.
Yep.
Very nice, but it's just such a cool car. Yes, the interior's all back together, and seatbelts, Wizard.
Yeah.
You did it.
Seatbelts are in.
I just felt naked driving this car without seatbelts.
Yeah, I like seatbelts as well.
Yeah, well, this is very exciting. It's been a long wait, but it's been a big project, so I guess we'll take her out. It still just pops right over. Amazing, these flatheads. Something I was too scared to do before is go out on the road. And here we go. A completed YouTube project. You almost never see this.
Wait, what? What did you say?
Excuse me?
What are you taking a nap?
No. You said a completed YouTube project, and like,
Well, it's
like
done.
magic, I appeared.
Yes. My 51 Ford Country Squire Woody
This is nice.
is done and going down the road.
Oh, I feel like I went back in time.
It is amazing. The steering wheel's a little crooked. That's probably
A little
an easy
bit,
fix.
yeah.
But other than that, going down the road, really good actually.
So you have upgraded the carbs,
Yes. Added on. It's now double carbs,
double carbs.
dual carburetor.
We'll open them up.
A little more oomph. Not bad.
That's not bad at all. That has some torque.
Yeah. That flathead V8 herbal.
So 3 on the tree.
Yes.
We're in high gear now.
We sure are. Maybe an overdrive will be in this car's future, but just for piddling around town, it's fine. Yeah.
Yeah, you're good. Dude, this thing is really cool.
Yep. Well, what brings you to Kansas?
Well, my car broke down. Well, not my car, but the car that we used to come from Car Trek filming, that sort of had a little bit of an issue, and Wizard was very kind in lending us his shop, so that's why I'm extremely dirty, and actually dirtying up your seat back here, which I apologize for.
Meh. It's all right.
You know what this needs, though?
What's that?
An LS swap.
No. But you know, it's coincidental. We met for the very first time when I drove that Porsche Apollo 911 to
Yes.
Florida. You had your V8 Vantage. We traded keys, I think.
Yeah.
Yes.
In Amelia Island, yeah.
And now it's
That's
back.
correct. And now it's back. I kind of wish I had that V8 Vantage still.
Well, I'm excited for another stab at that car to get it right
Yes.
and actually experience it. I barely got to experience the LS swapness of it. I just got so mad and sold it kind of
That's-
just in disgust, and I shouldn't have given up.
That should be really, really fun.
Yeah. Yep, looking forward to it. All right, let's turn in, pay the Wizard, like I always do, because I don't wrench every day like you, and thank you for watching.
Bye-bye.
That's it. Whoa, there's a trailer.
Okay, all right.
Okay,
Oh,
all right.
that's steering.
Okay.